Please welcome to the stage the President and CEO of the International Institute of New England, Jeff Thielman.
Everybody, I want to thank everyone for coming this afternoon. To celebrate with the International Institute of New England. This is our centennial year here in Boston, and this is one of our special celebrations as part of our centennial. It's been an interesting time in the field of immigration, to say the least, and it's very nice, and it feels really good, actually, to be around people who care deeply about our work and about our clients, about immigrants and refugees, and about women and girls who come to the United States, starting out here looking for a future that is filled with hope and promise. And to have your support of our team and our clients means a great deal right now. So thank you so much. I want to, thank you. We have a great staff. And our Chief Program Officer, Anka Marraro, is somewhere in the room. I can't see through the lights, but she leads a staff. So please, all of our staff that do program work, we have a direct service staff who work nights, days, weekends to serve women and girls and all of our clients in need every day. And we really appreciate your support. I also particularly want to thank our Senior Vice President and Chief Advancement Officer, Alexandra Weber, who conceived of this event, and our Director of Giving and Engagement, who came up with the acronym WILLOW, Women's Initiative for Learning, Liberation, Opportunity, and Well-Being. I had to read my notes, sorry. But I get it, So just, I want to recognize several special guests who are here today. The esteemed President of the Boston City Council, one of our panelists, Ruthzee Louijeune. Now, a few years ago, we had one of the City Council presidents here, Andrea Campbell, and then she rose right up the ranks. And so, I'd get a picture with Ruthzee today. Get a picture. So also staff from Tanya Fernandez Henderson's office, and our good friend Ben Weber, City Councilor, is here from District 6. There's a bunch of nonprofit leaders in the room from so many different organizations, and I'm not going to be able to mention all of you, but we really appreciate your presence, your leadership. I want to recognize two who are good friends of ours. Our former Chief Program Officer, who has launched into a great career serving young people in our city, children and families in our city. Emma Tobin runs the Family Nurturing Center. Thank you, Emma. Emma and I had many good talks when we worked together about her career, and look where she landed. So thank you, Emma. And then our good friend Cindy Rowe from the Jewish Alliance for Law and Social Action. Cindy takes us to all sorts of meetings at the State House and sends me bullets in advance of what not to say. So it works out well. Sometimes I follow them. I want to recognize several members of our board and leadership council who are here: Ann Merrifield, Belinda Duran, Scott Fitzgerald, Richard Golub, Carolina San Martin, and former board member and the current members of the leadership council, Ern Haddad and Nia Tatsis. So thank you so much for being here. And one of our panelists, Geny Doss, is a member of our leadership council as well with Vertex. Thank you so much for being here. It's important to remember in this time that we're living, which is quite challenging, that we were founded by a group of brave women at the YWCA in 1924, a year in which the United States of America formally passed legislation that closed our doors. It's called the Nationalities Act of 1924. And it limited immigration to 2% of all nationalities in the country per the 1890 census. That was designed to keep the country white and to keep people out of the country. And the women at the YWCA said, well, we're going to help people anyway. We're going to stand up and we're going to welcome the stranger. We're going to provide services to women and girls and others eventually. And we're going to make a difference. We're not going to be afraid. And last night, I was at the State of the City, and I saw two women who were not afraid of anything. Ruthzee, who spoke first, and then the mayor, who gave an outstanding speech. I've been a little down lately as I read the news, and we're not actually reading the news, we're in the news. We're like in the bullseye every day. And I was writing the TM and I said, well, you know what, I think I'm just gonna follow those two women. They're leading, might as well. So thank you so much for your leadership. So we need your support, we appreciate your support, and we appreciate your support for women and girls. Zan Weber's gonna tell you a lot more about what we do in a few minutes. But first, I wanna introduce young women who are going to do some dancing for us from Haitian dance group Babeline Molière, Nora Jean Charles, Manuela Gracias Nadekala, and Naceline Bilbert. Welcome and thank you.
Si tout le monde, tout pays, dans les mondes arrivés un jour réunis, d'un coup en paradis, nous t'ajoignons parole, on langage, en musique et en mélodie, en timon, magie. Bella, pas de chanter pour la vie meilleure, pour tout ça qui domine d'ailleurs, pour tout ça qui vivant d'ailleurs. Yo ka changé, pour tout petit monde ka joine manger, pour nous crucifier tout préjugé. Si tout le monde, tout pays, dans les mondes t'as qu'arrivé réunis, d'un coup en paradis, nous t'a joigné au power, on langage, en musique et en mélodie, en dis-moi magie. Candela. Si tout le monde, tout pays, dans les mondes arrivés réunis, tant qu'on en paradis, nous t'ajoignons power, on langage, en musique et en mélodie, on t'imment magie. Et ça.
Welcome, everyone. That was such an amazing dance, and it put a smile on my face. Thank you. And happy spring, because today is the first day of spring. Ramadan Mubarak for those who are observing, and happy Women's History Month. This is a room full of majority women, and it's a powerful space. I'm excited to see you all together here today and honored that you've chosen to spend your time learning more about and celebrating immigrant women with us today. A quick note, I'm going to use the term women going forward to represent anyone who identifies as female. As Jeff said, IINE was founded by women who had actually just won suffrage in 1920 and started to share that hard-won right to vote to stand up for the rights of others in their communities. Today, our staff is majority women. From our earliest days, IINE staff have dedicated themselves to addressing the needs of immigrant women who make up more than half of the 140 million people displaced worldwide. Through displacement tears every life apart, women and girls often face unique challenges and carry unique trauma. Women refugees and immigrants are especially at risk for gender-based violence and can be vulnerable to the breakdown of social structures and supports during conflict. But the challenges they experience do not end at resettlement. Many have specific needs that are often overlooked, even in the social service settings designed to support their early integration. In the course of our work, over the past several years, IINE began to grapple with the fact that women and girls in our care were experiencing different and often complex needs that we want to better address. Because we focus on helping clients become self-sufficient as early as possible, we often prioritize those who are designed or designated to work in their families or to learn. Most male clients enroll in our employment and language services, and most children enroll in public schools. What this means is that refugee and immigrant women often watch their spouses and children acclimate during resettlement through school and work, while they become more and more isolated. Lacking access to education, employment, and spaces in which they can socialize in culturally comfortable and supportive ways, women often struggle to adjust. So we set up the WILLOW Fund to strengthen the existing programming and advance immigrant women and girls' opportunities for success. As Jeff said, WILLOW in the WILLOW Fund stands for Women's Initiative for Learning, Liberation, Opportunity, and Well-Being. Each of these are areas critical to a woman's ability to successfully integrate into their new communities. The goal of the WILLOW Fund is to embed programming more supportive to women and girls within IINE's continuum of services. In recent years, we've implemented several women-focused initiatives across our sites that are really good examples of supportive programming. A Refugee Family Advisory Council in Manchester, New Hampshire, through which women meet monthly to discuss immigration challenges, share health information, and gather to share ideas with elected officials. An Afghan women's social group in Boston that provides a space for women and children to connect and socialize through cooking, the arts, and guest presenters from the community. A healthcare program which pays women to take English language classes and train and transition into healthcare roles. A swimming group for Afghan women and children, and a beginning literacy English class in Lowell that engages pre-literate mothers with young children. All of these program pilots are actually mostly unfunded, and because of this, short-term and limited in the number of women and girls who can participate. IINE needs resources to build and sustain robust programming that addresses immigrant women's immediate needs and long-term challenges. Our priority areas of support are women's wellness, safety, and workforce advancement. Complementary services such as child care support, feminine hygiene care, and school enrollment assistance will ensure that women can balance family responsibilities while pursuing education and work. This isn't an easy time to deliver services to refugees and immigrants, as Jeff said. It is a critical time. As you're aware, the federal government is dismantling its commitment to protecting people who have fled persecution and are desperate to rebuild their lives somewhere safe. IINE is mostly federally funded, and as a result, we're facing the loss of significant resources. In this context, it may not seem the time to invest in more supportive or nuanced services, but it is exactly the time to invest to increase our support of the most vulnerable among us, who also happen to be some of those with the most potential. It's how we honor our founders' legacy and ensure newcomers find welcome, safety, and opportunity in our communities. So the reality is I ask you to support or consider supporting our WILLOW Fund today. Community and private support are going to shape IINE's long-term and short-term future. It will take every supporter in our communities to sustain services to the thousands of immigrants who need us to help build their future as much as we need them to build New England's future. So, now for our main event. Thank you so much. Today I have the distinct honor of welcoming 4 extraordinary women to help illuminate the experiences of refugee and immigrant women and girls in our communities. But first, I'd like to introduce you to Nazia Jamal. A teacher in Afghanistan, Nazia was identified as a threat and target after the Taliban took control of the country. Nazia came to the US in 2023 under circumstances she'll share. Today, she is a teacher again at a language school here in Boston and also is a member of our Afghan women's group. Please join me in welcoming Nazia Jamal, sharing a personal story of displacement and transition.
Several years ago, as a kid, my siblings and I decided to play inside in a cold and rainy day. My youngest sibling, Phat, said, "Let's play a game that each of us pick a role that we want to be in the future." We agreed, and Phat, my youngest sibling, said that he wants to serve as a military. Naweed, my other sibling, said that he wants to become an engineer. Najma, my sister, who is older than me, said that he wants to be the manager of a school. They asked me, what do I want to be in the future? I told them I want to be the teacher and teach you guys how to get into those roles. Several years later, this childhood dream came into reality, and I started teaching in an early age as a high school student in grade of 10th. But teaching in a community like Afghanistan has always been a big challenge, from the negative feedbacks that I was receiving from family and friends, from relatives to the time that Taliban seized power. But none of these challenges stopped me of working on my dream job. After Taliban seized power, I started teaching online with an American organization, and I decided to have my classes only for women. My English classes were not only an English class. I was trying to give hope, motivation to my students for that 1-hour class so they could forget what were happening around the country. I had great and wonderful women with beautiful dreams and beautiful hopes. I have Feroza and Bahar, 2 sisters, with dream of becoming soccer players in a community like Afghanistan. I have Nazanin, who wants to become an architect. To pursue her dream, she was participating into some classes of like math and science to take preparation for that beside her English class, that unfortunately a big explosion happened inside her classroom. That day, Nazanin lost lots of her friends and classmates, and so many other ladies were badly injured. Nazanin didn't show up in the class for a while, and her classmate and I were worried as we imagined the worst. After some days, Nazanin joined, and we were relieved that she is fine. I asked her to talk about that experience, about her feeling. At first, she was unable to express her feeling and to talk. But her classmate and I supported her to talk, as we know how important it is to express our feelings in the hardest situations. As she was talking and she was crying, but we could see some relief after she explained her feelings. During the time that Nazanin was explaining her feelings of that experience, it reminded me of my own worst day that I had in my life, August 15, 2021. Early in the morning, my father called us to go back to Kabul, to go back to Ghazni, as we have moved to Kabul, the insecurities that has started around to be severe in Kabul. My father called us to go back to Ghazni, as it was expected that Taliban is going to enter Kabul and a big war is going to happen. I told my mother and my siblings to pack up. I can go to the bank and get some money. When I left the house, something was different. The weather was feeling different. I was feeling the darkness. If you close your eyes, if there is no light, you can see the darkness. But feeling the darkness is something that I wish for no one. There was a bank close to our neighborhood. When I arrived there, there was a big crowd, and the bank was closed. So I came back home and told my mother that I couldn't get money. My mom said, "It's okay, sweetheart. First, we have to save our life." There was a big argument between my heart and my mind. There was nothing okay that day. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. I wanted to ask why. But I couldn't, because I didn't want my mother to worry more, as she was already worried about my siblings and I. It was a 2 or 3 hours trip back to Ghazni, and I didn't talk even a word. When we arrived home, I went to my room, closed my door, and stand in front of the mirror. I looked at my eyes and told myself, "It's okay, Nazia. It's not going to last forever. World is not going to watch us. United Nations will do something. United States will absolutely do something for you and the women." Standing in front of the mirror and practicing words of hope has become my solace and my comfort zone, where I can confront my stress and practice words of hope. Because if I want my students to believe in my words and get motivated, I should believe them first. Though in 2023, December, my life path has been changed as I left my country, my family, and my students behind, and I arrived in the US on January 18, 2024. I was welcomed by IINE. I found a job. I was hired as a part-time teacher and later as a full-time teacher. Still navigating my way. In one of my challenging days here, I can say it was my brother's wedding last March. I really wanted to be there. My mother called me so I could attend the wedding online. I was crying really bad, and so I hung up the phone and went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror again. And I told myself, "Nazia, it's not the time. I know how you feel. I know you really want to be there, but it's not the time to cry. You're not going to make them upset. You're not going to make them worry about you." So I washed my face, put on some makeup, changed my clothes, and this time I was dancing with them. As I stand here today, I want us to think about my students, about my family, especially my sisters, who was stopped by the Taliban because of the color of her abaya that was not black and it was dark red. Yeah, it's the reality of Afghan women who are facing, that their color of their clothes put them in danger. I want us to think about countless of women around the world who lost their freedom, their basic rights, their freedom to education, or any other freedom that they want to have. Let us not look away. Let's be their voice. Let's be their support. Let's support in any way that we can. Let's support to get their freedom, peace, to live with dignity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nazia. Your story reminds us of what it takes to fight for opportunities and rights for women and the personal sacrifice it can demand, but also the inspiration that it offers others. And on that note of inspiration, I'd like to welcome the rest of our panelists to the stage now. You can come up as I call you. Ruthzee Louijeune, a Boston native and graduate of Boston Public Schools, including also Columbia and Harvard, making history as the first Haitian American elected Boston municipal government. Geny Doss, who serves as the Vice President of CMC Small Molecule Operational Quality at Vertex Pharmaceuticals. In addition to this role, Geny works with widows in the Middle East to build parenting and life skills and is a member of IINE's Leadership Council. Welcome, Geny. Dr. Rohini Rau-Murthy, a family medicine physician at DotHouse Health Center in Dorchester. That's her. Rohini manages the Newcomers Clinic, a program established to support immigrant and refugee populations. And welcome back, Nazia. Well, thank you all for being here today, and it's so wonderful to be on stage with you. So the first question I thought we could share is taking note of Nazia's story. Ruthzee and Geny and Rohini, can you share your personal journey or a part of your personal journey and what inspired you to focus on the well-being of immigrant and refugee populations, and in particular, women and girls?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ruthzee Louijeune, President of the Boston City Council. Still very emotional from hearing you, Nazia. I feel unqualified to be on a panel with you and the courage and the strength that you've shown. And so I just think that people and I'm not an immigrant, I was the daughter of immigrants from Haiti. I myself, I'm very emotional. People don't understand that so many people, like when they leave their homes, it's not by choice, and how difficult it is. So although I'm not an immigrant myself, as a daughter of immigrants, and we're Haitians, and so it's not like my parents are oversharing, they undershare, because it's like, we're busy working, we want to take care of you, we have no problems. But as I got later in life, my mom would talk to me about that transition when she came here in her mid to late 20s and the depression that she faced, even though she was here to build economically for her family and to do all of that. So I just want to say thank you. And I'm sorry at the same time, that it is so hard and so heavy and so difficult. And so I do hope that you're able to make it back one day soon to see your family and to be with them.
Thank you.
My journey is that of the daughter of immigrants. That's where it starts. Your origin story starts where your family starts, and they came here without any money, barely speaking the language, to create a better life for me and my three sisters. I'm a result of our investments in everything public. Sorry, right? Public libraries, our schools, our parks. That is me, right? I am the result of that. And I tell people, yes, I've seen the best of our schools, went to Boston Land School, and before that, went to schools that are underperforming schools in Boston Public Schools. And so then I know that there's nothing inherently special about me, although I do think I'm amazing, that would allow me to go to Harvard Law School, Harvard Kennedy School, and Columbia, right? There's nothing, right? That just means that, I was able to land the right support, people who believed in my talents and my ability. There's no reason why that can't be any Boston Public School kid. And, I think I saw my mom has a lot of siblings, my dad has a lot of siblings, and our home was always the center for everyone. I grew up in Mattapan, and we didn't have locks on our doors. And people were like, what? But we didn't, because our home was where people came when they were coming from Haiti and needed a bed to sleep in or needed food on Saturdays. So I grew up understanding what it meant, something that I say all the time in this position as an at-large city councilor, as a president of the council, that our calling and our duty, both me as religiously and me politically and me civically, our calling is to be each other's keeper, because that's what I saw growing up. And so that's my story. Yes, I did internships here, I did stuff here and there, and blah, 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 but the origin story is coming from parents and from a community that understood what it meant to be each other's keeper.
Thank you. And thank you for also sharing your emotions, because I think if we all did that, we might be in a slightly different place, how challenging and difficult it is, but also for sharing that idea of not locking your door. I think that is what we're facing and grappling with right now in the US, and the opportunity to sort of extend the welcome and continue to extend it to the communities that are here because they want to be here. Thank you. Geny, how about you?
I am too a daughter of an immigrant family. When we moved in, my parents were actually in a good situation in terms of speaking the language. My dad had a job waiting for him at residence, but yet I've watched my parents actually have to integrate into a new culture, bring their 3 children into the school system and make a lot of decisions and really not have a place to go to. They had to ask a lot of questions to a lot of people to figure out. They made mistakes as they were trying to really understand how to integrate into a new culture. And that, in a way, had become a learning for me. But as I grew up, I became that point of reference for many people in my network. They came to me as someone whose first generation grew up to ask a lot of questions, even how to raise children, as they were immigrating into the US, and they had a lot of challenges that go beyond that in terms of the financial stability and lack of the understanding the language and many other challenges. I think that many of the things I've learned is that many building blocks in my life have kind of got me closer to being able to help women. And one of those things, as I was trying to raise my kids, I've studied a lot about parenting and emotional health and people development. In 2020, a lot of the women in my network have asked me to start to do seminars for them during COVID. And it was because many women were stuck at home, having challenges with their families and children. And I really never realized that the learnings I've gained throughout my life, including kind of being studied in my own and learned on my own, can benefit many. And that to me was an aha moment in terms of what you can offer people. It could be money, but it could also be the learnings and how to engage with the community and help. So I started to do seminars for women in my network 6 years later now. That community have grown. I started to teach them about parenting and then emotional health and, just people development. Through that network, I've learned also to connect with women outside of the US. Back in 2020, I started to work with widows in villages in the Middle East. And I have been doing Zoom meetings with them since then, every weekend. And I travel to the Middle East once a year to do conferences. That community have also grown to be more than 800 women. It taught me a lot about the challenges women have and how common they are, regardless of where you live, and what we can contribute to, especially for those who are people managers as well at work. You apply the experience, whether you're developing people at work or outside. you actually can do so much with the experience you have.
Thank you, Geny. We were just talking earlier, too, that you don't actually need a professional degree in human services, I think, to share your skill sets and try to recognize what others need and lend that hand. Rohini, you have a very unique focus on the well-being of immigrants and refugees. So could you share a little bit about your personal journey?
Sure. I'm Rohini. I'm a family medicine physician at DotHouse, like you mentioned. You know, maybe I have a unique focus, but I think that the origin story that Ruthzee and Geny shared are one that I really share as well. I have so much that I owe to my mother and to my grandmother in coming here, and I bet you if I were to ask across this room, the people who are here, you'd have really similar feelings as well. I think when I was younger, my mom took a really concerted effort to make sure that I felt supported in my culture and my space, not just to feel okay in my own skin, but also to make sure that I understood that advocacy was a necessity. And so, you know, when I was little, I'd be going to protests with little flags and, you know, going on marches. And she really set that basis in me, and that made it okay for me to work with taxi drivers in New York, work with refugee communities in Albany, and now with the help of my team at DotHouse, to be able to have a newcomer clinic here. So I think that really strong foundation where you know it's okay to go with your heart and your morals and to make a lot of noise, I think is that same basis that I'm hearing here. It's so cool to hear other people's stories and what you've done with that fire in your heart to make sure that you can reach communities both locally and globally. So I think really maybe a bit of a different focus, but really the same thread.
Great, thank you so much. Nazia, I'll ask you to start with this next question. As a woman born in another country, and this is going to be for everyone too, or the first generation daughter of those born outside the US, what role did community and culture around you play in your ability to thrive in New England?
About my own experiences, as I arrived here last year on January, I was greeted by IINE, like these kinds of agencies, or like the first thing that the first place that is helping us as a refugee. Like, I feel like when you leave your country and move to a new country, everything is new. You are like a newborn baby who is trying to walk. So for me, while I was like that I was trying to stand up and I was feeling down. And IINE was the one who was helping us to get into the community, to find find jobs or any other services that you need while you want to start to live in a new place. So we had Afghan groups that we were getting together once in a month and socializing, understanding each other's needs, and sharing our thoughts, our feelings. So that's how I feel as a woman who is an immigrant. Mostly women are more fragile than men, I feel, but they are stronger. So.
That's well put. Yeah. Thank you, and I have to also thank you for taking the little support, the small amount of support that you received, and turning it around and becoming a teacher in our country and lifting people up.
Thank you.
So thank you. We can go back down this way. Yeah,
That's good. I think I accidentally skipped ahead and told you a little bit about how my mom created the community and space where I could really, kind of flourish. But I think that's why these communities here are so important. You need a space where you can feel like, oh, my skin, my food, my speech, this is normal and good and fine and part of the thing that makes me great. So I think that's why those communities are so important. And that's what my mom set up for me when I was little and what allows me to continue to be in spaces like this.
Great, thank you.
For me, I think kind of coming into a school system, I had to actually rely on that community to help sort of support in terms of how I can integrate. And this is a funny story, but I was very young, but they were willing to have me actually graduate, and they kept me to help liaise with the new students coming in who were also immigrants within the school in San Francisco. That's where I grew up. So it was kind of an interesting transition for me where I actually had to help others very early on because I understood the challenges, and I became the liaison between the teachers and a lot of the students, immigrants who were coming into school. But I also was inspired by what my mom had to do. She was an English teacher before, but as she actually moved into the US, she had to rethink her career, and she had to rethink what to do. And that for me was also a journey that was very important. She actually had to go back to school. She kind of studied and got her degree in early childhood, and then she ended up eventually, over the years, opened her own daycare. And it was almost watching someone navigate through how to rethink and not stop at what she used to do, but kind of how to take her teaching experience and build on that. So there's a lot the community helps with, but that also gets me to what inspired me with IINE is that you can go to a place where you can get all the help you want and need, and instead of having to navigate on your own, and then sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't. So that in itself, for me, was, when Nia talked to me about this experience, for me, it was so powerful to be able to have a place that actually offers that type of services and support.
Oh, thank you. And I'll just comment that so much of what IINE does and how we care about people comes from the 125 cultures that we work with across the last 100 years, and bringing people into our staff and our work from those communities and cultures, so that the majority of people at the Institute have had lived experiences, and like Nazia and like all of you are giving that opportunity and that learning, that experience to the next person behind them.
Well, I think I want to agree when you're talking about how at first generation you become the person who is helping with all the paperwork, and to some extent that was true for some of my experience, although, shout out to, 1199 was my mom's union when she was a nursing assistant. Shout out to Local 26 in the house, our servers tonight. But, my father, it's about, my father came here, basically spoke a little English, my mom, and they would then turn around. They didn't have an IINE, and I wish that they did. I wish that they had that source. They were that for their community, helping newcomers settle, like, okay, this is the paperwork, this is how you fill it out, this is how you go find jobs, Just like 2 months ago, my mom was taking the Orange Line with a new arrival to just show them their route to work. And so I think for me, I say this, Haiti obviously right now is the worst that I've seen it, is the worst that my parents have seen it. And it really hardens a lot of the people who are in Haiti to the level of destruction and how bad things are. But Haitians as a people are very communitarian, and so we live that out. Another part of the culture, growing up, there were three things, and it's like now on social media, all the kids talk about it, but growing up, we didn't have this social media to talk about the three things that Haitian people will allow their kids to go to is l'église, l'école, la caille. And l'église is church, l'école is school, and la caille is home. Those are the three places you could go. And for a lot of our communities, especially for our immigrant communities, church is where you find that solace and where you find that commonality. So I just do want to mention that, especially in this moment that we find ourselves in, how are we supporting immigrant communities, and what are the institutions that they trust? And of course, IINE and organizations are working with them, but for a lot of immigrant communities, it's also the churches, it's also the social centers where they feel the safest. And I think it's been incumbent upon me, incumbent on my Councilor Ben Weber, who's here because I think he cares about immigrants and refugees, but mostly because Zan is his wife. To really and I think Jeff talked about, it's important that we're meeting people where they are, and where our immigrant communities feel the safest. And I know from experience, and I know from what we see today, is that the social institutions where our immigrant communities feel the most safe, that we need to be there and be partnering with them.
Thank you so much. The next question might take a little thought. I mean, I'd love for you to think deeply about this. How did the unique needs of immigrant women different from those of the general population?
Well, I'll just speak to this very quickly right now. One of the things that I'm most afraid of in this moment is increases in domestic violence. There's already such tremendous underreporting happening in those scenarios. But right now, and I think Nazia said it perfectly, women are most fragile, not the most, also at the same time strongest, but in some ways the most fragile in these situations where there is that a gender dynamic, a power dynamic. There does need to be more work, and we've been talking with the Boston Police Department and others in the city of Boston with how are we making sure that people and communities still feel safe turning to authority for assistance in really difficult situations. So just wanted to make sure that I highlighted that because of something Nazia said, but yeah.
Thank you. Geny?
I think that having worked with many women in the US and outside, I feel like there are some basic challenges all women are challenged with. And sometimes it's just finding themselves and their untapped potential, understanding themselves or what they're capable of beyond what they know. And that really takes a lot of effort to actually change their own convictions and to make them really understand that there's a lot more to them as women and as people who could be leaders and really have huge future. And I feel like that's something that takes work and it takes effort to engage in that way. But the second one sometimes is lack of financial support to be able to really pursue a lot of opportunities. And I think that kind of in combination makes it very challenging for them to progress in life.
Thanks. What you said, the first thing that you said about women finding the confidence in themselves, I think and we've talked about this before, was one of those sort of intangibles in terms of what helps people integrate, thrive, move in a way that they can rely on themselves. And I would just like to say that this sort of conversation is a part of the way people find that sort of intangible strength and support, seeing other women acknowledging some of the challenges, but also what you're doing to support other women. And I'll just also speak to the Haitian community. The Institute served about 15,000 people from the Haitian community, and Massachusetts is the luckiest state to have such an incredible community. And it, I think, has given us a level of strength because the community is so strong. So I really feel like these sort of intangible ways to understand and sort of connect are what we need now then to sort of build our confidence and move into the tangible strength we need to see, which Jeff mentioned Michelle Wu showed us last night too. Yeah. Nazia, how about you? Oh, I'm sorry, Rohini.
So I think because I'm coming from the healthcare perspective, the thing that I think about the most is how confusing our healthcare system is, right? Think back to your last interaction with our system, and then try doing that without English, with 2 kids behind you, worrying about where you're going to live, what job you're going to get. That's really what immigrant women are facing. And I was thinking about a family that Maria, our patient navigator, and I know well. She has 2 kids who are 3 and 5 who are so smart and so bright. And, I met them first, and she has taken such good care of them, and they are doing so well. But she's really only able to take care of her diabetes when she comes into the clinic for a different reason, right? To get food for her kids, or where can my kids get the best school, or what can I do? And so I feel like she really illustrates both the complexities of our system, how hard it is to navigate as an immigrant woman, and the incredible strength that she has in keeping everything together and just pushing forward, and the importance of having people like patient navigators like Maria to really build everything together and make sure you're possible and able to move forward.
Thank you. And again, like so much of our work, it sounds like your work, is really, it's just about guiding people into processes and ways to help them connect to those processes and teach them how to use them so that they can move on themselves. And that's what they do. They sort of learn that, they pick it up, and then they're on their way. Nazia, how about you? What's different for women who are immigrants?
I think getting into the new community might be the hardest thing. So to find someone or some groups that they can connect with, and they can find that strength of the connection with them. So that might be the thing that I feel like is unique, because you can't find that connection everywhere. So not with everyone. So each of us might be able to connect with some group, but not with all. So finding that connection and building that community and building those relationships might be the unique needs that women might be hard for them to find. So like when you go to a workplace, if that workplace is not the thing that you wanted or your colleague are not nice, that would be the hardest, because you spend most of your time at work, or at least half of your time in a day at work. So if it's not good, that would be the hardest. And I am the luckiest one that I have the very nice colleagues who are always supporting me.
That's awesome to hear. And I think you just answered this, Nazia, but I'll ask everyone. In your experience, what are some of the biggest barriers immigrant women face in integrating into U.S. communities, and what services are the most helpful in overcoming those obstacles? And then further, what challenges did you see immigrant women face in Boston in particular? And anyone who wants to share, go first.
Well, I mean, I think you talked about it, Zan, too. Like, it's really a resource question. I think, you know, and I say this, and I was at Wentworth this morning, and we have so many rich institutions, both, I mean that in terms of financially and in terms of like all that they can offer to our city. And that, like, how do we connect people to that is important. But I also think, who are the ones who are willing to go and find people and be like, hi, I'm here to help you. Like, and to be able to tell you that in multiple languages, and to be able to do something that I think sometimes, you know, I think about policy, I think about paternalism and policy, how do we give people agency? I'm all for like cash transfers to help people, because oftentimes they are the best people to make decisions for themselves. But also, I do think that there is room for hand-holding, to help people find their way. That's why I think the work of the WILLOW Fund, of really empowering women, of really being and standing with women, immigrant women who are, you know, facing a new country, a new language, all of these things that are new, is incredibly important. That focuses on your ability to, you know, find financial strength. I think you talked about something. Oftentimes, people come from, and I'm fangirling you, Sani, if you can't tell, you're amazing. But like, people are doctors in their own homes or in their own countries, or they're nurses or they're teachers, and they come here and they're not able to find a way to continue what their trade has been or what they've been trained in. And I think any opportunity we get to continue to help people find work and dignity in work, I think is really important. Because I think there is that the transition has to be a very scary one, leaving behind everything you know to a new land. And how do we help people realize, okay, well, you can continue to be parts of who you were here, and let's help you do that. And I think that's part of what you all do really well. So thank you.
Thanks. And I'll just mention, we have so little time with people. And to your point, there are so few resources for them, despite how poor they are, how little they come here with. So I think, particularly now, but always, we've tried to do our work in community, because there's just so much an organization with a set of services people absolutely need in the beginning of their stay here can do, and the rest is really up to our communities in terms of helping find that next step and helping continuously welcome people. Our work is critical at the beginning, but it really takes the entire city of Boston and beyond, I think, to really understand that people don't need just 3 months of support. They need that unlocking of the door. They need the door to open forever. Yeah.
And there's that takes a lot of money and a lot of like long-term commitment.
A lot of people, yeah.
So thank you to the people who are doing that.
Could not agree more. I think it takes about, in my experience, 2 to 3 years of continually, supporting these women. Again, going back to the tangible and intangible, because you can offer a lot of services, but until they actually understand how they're going to pivot and start maybe to rethink how they're going to integrate into a new culture and also figure out what's their, future career and how do they integrate, it takes time for them to mentally believe in themselves and then become actually willing to try and change their own narrative. That's a very hard thing to do for women in particular, more than men. And I think it does take a journey for them to realize it. And sometimes you don't know when it's going to click. You don't know when they're going to actually realize that path for themselves, and it takes time.
Thank you. And I honestly, I think you sharing parts of your narratives is really helpful to people who are trying to embrace their own and even sort of identify with their own. Rohini?
I really liked what Ruthzee said about the importance of people who are out there and really trying to welcome people, saying hi, grabbing people in. You'd asked the question, what are obstacles that are specific to Boston? And I feel like we're an incredibly welcoming city, but we're also an incredibly expensive city. It's very hard to find housing, and man, it gets cold in the winter. And I feel like those are 3 big things that we can do a lot to show up for, right? So if we need to make our voices heard that people need longer term housing than just a few days, or they really need easy access to not only food, but culturally appropriate food. They need jobs. They need to have easily findable jobs. They need to have easy access to healthcare, so you don't have to go through an entire maze before you can get to see a doctor.
Thank you. I feel like I was at the State of the City last night too, and like it reminded me, even if the federal government is shifting all of its commitments, that the state and the city don't have to. We could figure out, Ruthzee, I'm sure you could talk about this better than me, but we could figure out what our role is going to be in the next several years. It's really up to us, I think the mayor was saying. Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the spaces that we're so lucky for. We're actually in a space where we have local leaders who are strong supporters of immigrants. Like the fact that Ruthzee's here is absolutely incredible. The fact that both she and Mayor Wu talked about the importance of immigrants in our community. Like, how lucky are we to be setting the example for the rest of the nation?
I know. Yes. Okay, on the flip side of that question, what could host communities, including our systems, change to enhance the integration for immigrant women? Are there spaces in the areas of healthcare, workforce, education, or politics where you see openings for new engagement strategies? Yeah, go for it.
I was thinking about this one a lot because it's such a broad question. Here we are in a room full of movers and shakers who could actually do things. And I think what I'd love to focus on is what we can do to shore up our health system. Like, we are so lucky to be in Massachusetts where everyone gets a little bit of insurance guaranteed. But right now, Carney's closing, CCA is falling apart. We really need the investment and I think what you're saying, right? Federal, I don't know how much we can control, but local, we can do it. We can invest in our insurance, in our community health centers. I'm a little biased because of where I work, but we can invest in our hospitals, in our training programs. Like, you have a CNA training program. That's, I think, where we can really focus and make sure that we're ready for not just this year, but the next 4 years, the next administration, and the next set of things. So that's
great. Thank you so much.
Anyone?
I agree that I think the local communities have the opportunity to really be impactful and to really equip women to be able to succeed. And it could be as simple as just at the community basis to be able to establish some basic ESL classes and other things that can actually just be a head start, in addition to all the maybe bigger picture initiatives that can be done. But really in every neighborhood and in every community, that's something that's very attainable that can be done.
Agree.
I will speak to sort of like what's been like just on my mind this year and past years is, I think that obviously in this moment, there is increased and heightened fear for a lot of our immigrant communities. And so as much as we can get, and we're fighting on the council to get more money to support legal assistance to for people. But the more, and I'm sure that there's a lawyer or two in this room connected to a law firm, how we get people to continue to partner with us to help with the legal defense work that we're going to need to be ramping all of the way up in this year and the next year and the years to come to really provide that financial support for people, right? Because you think about, a household and the things people need money for, wouldn't it be great if they're worried about, they shouldn't be worried at all, but if what they need to spend their money on is food and clothes and not worrying about spending this money for a lawyer. And by the way, is the lawyer really a lawyer because it's someone who knew to come to a church where vulnerable populations are to take advantage of, right? So like there are so many ways that we can be standing in the gap for vulnerable women, for vulnerable immigrant communities right now. And it's just one that is really big on my mind. In 2016, we had an Immigration Legal Defense Fund, and a lot of law firms were signing up to help. And so we're still trying to get that same energy, which is, not coming as quickly. And so to the extent that we can make sure that we are helping people who want to stay here actually stay here, I think is really important.
Thank you. And I would just, say that it's not actually only government that can be helpful in our communities. It's probably going to fall on everybody who has resources to recognize that the federal government is vacating that responsibility, and that in order to take care of each other, we're going to have to find other ways to support and not kind of turn away from that reality. Yep.
So I think not knowing the language might be one of the things that can put a woman or any other person in like a big barrier in front of them, because they might not be able to share their needs in healthcare, in education, or any other areas. So that is the thing that I feel like might be the most important one, not knowing the language.
So I'll just mention that Governor Healy has a $30 million line item in her budget for ESOL across our state, and that it's exactly to address that. It's the very simple and profound barrier of not knowing the language is a huge, solvable barrier that we could all be a part of. Okay, all right, we have our last question. And I'll start with you, Nazia. What advice would you give to refugee, immigrant, and women who are just beginning their journey in Boston?
Life is never going to be easy. You need to be resistant. You need to, if you stay for life to get easier for you, it will never happen. You need to make yourself stronger, face your fear, and go strongly toward your dreams and never give up.
Thank you.
I would just say you don't have to do this alone. Look for your community, look for the people who can help you get through this journey.
Thank you.
They can write their own narrative and their success story and believe in themselves, ask for help. Women don't always ask for help, and they need to seek the resources they need to be able to succeed. I agree, the journey is not easy, but they learn about themselves as they travel the journey, and success is waiting.
I think oftentimes people come and they face discrimination or it's really hard. And I think that one of the things that we need to get better at, because, right, I agree with everything. There's going to be highs and lows, and I think that's true for life, for everyone, right? There are highs and there are lows, and especially navigating a new country. But, like, turning what you bring that are differences and having people forcing us to see them as assets. The fact that you speak a new language, the fact that a different language, the fact that you come from a different background, those are assets for us. So the things that you're afraid about, like, well, what if they're nervous about my accent? Well, your accent is a superpower because that means you speak another language, right? So, just how are we doing the work of, like, helping people flip that narrative? So walk in there knowing that into that job interview or into whatever new space you're in, yes, maybe afraid, but also knowing that you have superpowers. And those superpowers are really who you are and your identity. So I think it's important that we help bring that out in people.
Thank you. I mean, I think this conversation helps people flip. And, thank you for helping us sort of contribute to our narrative as a city and as a community. And thank you for everyone who has come and offered your support and has joined us. And I hope that, a lot of us represent organizations and parts of our work that either need your advocacy and your voice around, or need your resources and support and need you to hold our hands, as Ruthzee said. I just got to check, do we have time for questions? Oh, good, okay. So if you have any questions for our panel, this would be a wonderful time. And I'm gonna try to see if there's anybody. Anyone? Okay. Thank you.
Hi there. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I would just love to know of an example of a time where you saw how culturally competent care has made an impact for refugee, immigrant, and women. Refugee or immigrant women. Maybe Rohini. I don't know if you have a specific example. Thank you.
Yeah, so we started the newcomer clinic about 1.5 years ago, and first it was just me seeing patients, and I don't speak Spanish and I don't speak Haitian Creole, and I had to work pretty hard to build trust. And then Maria, our patient navigator, came. She's been at DotHouse for a long time, and we were just really lucky that she wanted to take this role. But the difference in people's faces after they had met with Maria and understood that she could talk to them in Spanish, that she understood what they were going through, that she would sit there, whether it be 20 minutes or 2 hours, to hear what they were saying and find the resources. That's everything that you need to make sure that you can actually give your community, your patients, what they truly deserve. So just the difference that having a team makes is, I think, the key to having culturally competent care.
Great question. There's another. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for holding this. I'm an immigrant myself. I'm originally from Brazil, been in America for 30 years. Danubia Camargo Silva, I work with the Boston Foundation. And my question is oftentimes us immigrant women come from cultures with deficit mindsets or the mentality of scarcity, where we know that we're meant for more, that we deserve more, but our cultures just let us know that just be happy with what you got. You know what I mean? And sometimes the opportunity is right there in front of us, but we may not know what that means. We might have to get an academic degree to understand what imposter syndrome. I'm not meant for this. Is this for me? So one of the things I learned, because I wanted to be an attorney, is that psychology does not hold all the answers, but it's a good guide. And sometimes we neglect the fact that mental health or supporting a woman to understand her worth and that she's deserving is important as we connect them with resources. And I don't see a lot of that. Like, for example, on the whole movement around buying homes, one time not everybody's meant to own a house. I'm like, no, everybody's meant to own a house. You know what I mean? So how are we as a system looking at mental health if you want people to take up the opportunities that are available for them? Because sometimes they don't, only because of that mental health and that message that for generations, like, it's not for you. You're just not meant for it. How are we working to change that narrative, that internal narrative that is just so hard? Thank you.
Great question. Anyone want to jump in? Geny?
I mean, obviously, I do it informally, but my experience has been when I started to work with women, I thought I was very much targeting sort of parenting and some of the elements that they needed to learn about and cultural fit and all that. But quickly enough, I realized that unless you tackle the emotional health and the self-development, people development aspect, they actually don't know what they don't know. And they don't realize what those opportunities are and how to think about themselves and their potential. That's why it really became my own learning about how the human mind works and the deficiencies that women have in their own way of thinking about themselves and their confidence in themselves. So it really became sort of a series of curricula I had to build, starting with emotional health, my own development, my own learning, the career path I can take, the options, and how to actually build myself and my confidence before I can even succeed. So it's really the person's journey. That's why my comment that it takes sometimes 2 to 3 years for things to click, for people to start to actually understand who they are and their potential before they can make way in their life and succeed.
And I'll just say, I think this is one of the important, like the Willow Fund addresses well-being. I think there are a lot of immigrant groups, whether it be the Brazilian Women's Center or the Haitian Association of Haitian Women. I totally understand sort of like the framework of your question in like, how do we get women who come from cultures and backgrounds that don't see themselves being the best and the baddest and being able to do whatever to realize and to feel empowered to be that. I think creating spaces that are safe of other women who's like, no, it's actually like you can and you will and you're able to because I did or because the person before me tried and they weren't able to do it, but now we know the pitfalls to avoid and this is how you succeed. I think that's incredibly important. I really applaud the good doctor for talking about how complicated our healthcare system is because it is impossible. And it's even harder on the mental health side. I think we are trying to make strides here in the city of Boston for people to have more access to behavioral health, to mental health clinicians, because I do think something that we downplay and underappreciate in the immigrant and in the refugee woman story is the mental health, right? Like my mom she had depression, like she should have been seeing a clinician for the depression that she was experiencing and didn't. But as Anne's saying, and as we all know, we are in a resource tight. And so my office, 2 years ago, when we were seeing an increase in the number of new arrivals, we're setting up meetings with the Department of Mental Health saying, what is the plan to help address the severity of the mental health issues that we see coming in our new arrivals? And, I'm grateful actually more so for my colleagues who are therapists, who are working in behavioral health than sort of the system, as you describe it, who are able to understand and identify the needs that exist and be doing everything we can to try to stand in the gap, because we know that the issues that you identified are just so very real. Thank you.
And I'll just add, I'm so glad you asked that question because that's exactly why we set up the Willow initiative. It also to kind of learn ourselves what spaces people need to develop to feel like they can feel more well and be together in that. And I think that, we need to put so many more resources into our health system and our mental health care, but that's often you utilize it like an acute state where you're coming apart. And the whole goal of some of the programming is to try to capture people when they're first here and are open to connecting with each other and finding those spaces that help them avoid so much isolation and then potentially loss, or just give them a really early experience with finding confidence and seeing other people succeed. So that's the whole point. Thank you.
Maybe I want to add something. There are 3 professions of my own sort of network and friends who are willing to volunteer, and I rely on them heavily. It's the lawyers, the psychiatrists, and the doctors. And I have few who I rely on, I connect with when I see women in need or their children who really need help, and they're willing to volunteer. And I think that goes back to the kind of help people can offer. IINE is more than there's the financial, but then also professionals who can also help.
Thank you. Anyone? One more? Okay, thank you.
On? Okay, great. Thank you so much, all of you, for being so vocal and sharing your stories. I would love to hear from your perspectives as either immigrants or refugees or children of immigrants, what you think the greatest factor in your successes has been.
For me, it's finding security, finding opportunities here that I didn't have in my country that was banned after 2021. Like, as I mentioned in my story, that I had many interesting women who had beautiful dreams that they were stopped off going through that to change that dream into reality. So the thing that I really found one of my biggest thing that I'm grateful for is the opportunities that I can follow and the dreams that I have to get into them. So that is one of the biggest thing as an immigrant that I found it here.
For me, being a middle child, you have to be resilient, right? But really, there are just few qualities that can be a success factor. It's resiliency, tenacity, but also never say no to an opportunity, because you get to learn about yourself and you also get to appreciate kind of a new leap and success. And I think those are key elements.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just sound like a broken record because it really is my parents. And, you know, you talk about being both a middle child. My dad has 4 daughters. And so I think, well, who's like, well, then got to let them know that they can do and be anything. And I'm grateful for my parents for that and for education, which is why that's something that, you know, as being the great equalizer, you know, we don't always see that, but it can happen and it should be happening. And so it's definitely my parents and education for me.
I really liked what Ruthzee said in the beginning about having resources poured into her, because I think that's what allowed me to become, well, hopefully continuing to become on the path to what I am. But I think the thing that I've continued to find is community who have like-minded community, you know, people who have the same morals, the same goals, and you can find that anywhere. I feel like I probably first found that in the community that my mom had, but then was able to continue to find it in college and then in medical school and now where I work. And I think that's what continues to bolster you to keep going.
Thank you. We have time for one more question if there is one more.
Hi everyone, I am an immigrant woman from Afghanistan as well. So my question is related to the Zan's point that seeing most of the room filled by women. Honestly, that brings me to an idea and experience that I had back from Afghanistan. I bring that one with myself here, that we women always try to fight for our right alone, not having a lot of men beside us. And being as a woman experience, I was wondering how much effort or work we are doing to, in addition to the support that we are giving to women to become empowered, how much we are putting efforts on increasing awareness on the generation of the men of refugees, that they need to support their women as well. We have a woman that they need like mental health support, everything that they are getting from like agencies like IINE and also like some healthcare organization, but they need support from inside the household as well, from the family member. Like they are not allowed to talk, they are not allowed to share. Like I have seen a lot of women that they are interested joining in a lot of like being socialized and attending a lot of events. But the mindset up to the point that we had questioned that the women are said that you deserve this, how much this right you have, you don't need any more of this. But that's something I know women want more, but there are limitations that maybe family members are not supporting, including the men. So I was wondering that maybe we need more efforts on that part as well, and how much you agree on that.
Did anybody want to comment on that?
I totally agree. Because after Taliban took over the country, only there was women who were protesting for their for their rights, for their right to education, their right to work. But there was no man there to come with them on the streets to follow them, to support them. Maybe it was their own safety, or maybe they were worried about their families, that if Taliban could do something to them, what would happen to their family. So I think I totally agree, and men should help women to get their rights. It's not only Afghan women. We have many women around the world who need support.
This, I mean, what an incredible point and a hard and challenging one at the same time. You know, I'm trying, in my mind, trying to find answers or potentials, you know, and I think I mentioned, I uplifted, like, what are the safe spaces that people trust, right? Think about the churches or mosques or whatever it is that is closest to people. And, like, are there ways that we can work with them to think about what that inclusivity looks like? And then I was like, well, aren't they maybe probably part of reinforcing the problem? And that in a lot of situations that may also be the case. But I do think that with some of them that there can be a window of opportunity there, because I think it's really hard to penetrate those cultural issues. But it's not, you know, I'm having a Women's History Month reception and people are like, oh, I'm a man, can I come? I was like, what, no, because you can't celebrate what, you don't want to celebrate Women's History Month? Like, of course, right? Like, everyone can celebrate. And so it's not just a problem in communities where there's a lot of social conservatism, right? Like, we need to do a better job of allyship in so many different ways. And I don't know if anybody in the audience or Zan has an answer, because I'd love to hear about what we can be doing about that issue, because I think it's a hard one.
I mean, I guess I'll just say it's getting worse. It's not only other countries. Yeah. And right now it's getting a lot worse. Just to wrap up, I think something Nazia said, and this speaks to, people have to feel safe. And that's sort of the first step. And I think when you said what's given you the most, you know, opportunity for success here, the first thing you said was safety. And that's actually the whole point of the International Institute and all of the people who work to make sure our communities have the opportunity for safety. This is not just about the WILLOW Fund or the women's movement, but the broader understanding that, like, almost everybody in this room's family came to the US for safety or opportunity at some point in time, and that we can't really get a lot further than that unless we recognize the first thing people need is safety. And I think we're trying to find common women's spaces to create that opportunity for people who are new, who may be from other cultures, who struggle with allyship and finding sort of the consensus around women's roles. But I think the reality is we can't even begin to do that safe space work if we're turning women, children, men, and everyone else away at our borders when they ask to be safe. So on that note, thank you so much for everyone and all your support and for our amazing panel. Let's give them a round of applause.